Hey guys, if you like Murder with Friends and you want to support our show, we have a special offer from our parent network, TYT. So head over to tytnetwork.com/gift and you can get 3 months of TYT membership for only $25. What do you get with that membership? You get a lot of exclusive Murder with Friends content. You can download all our episodes. You can listen to them as podcasts. We have some discussions and entire episodes that have never been up on YouTube. So if you're interested in that, head on over to tytnetwork.com/gift. Merry Christmas from all of us at Murder with Friends. We hope it's happy, but also spooky. Hello and welcome to a campfire edition of Murder with Friends. It's the show where friends get together and talk about the darker sides of history. I'm your host, Grace Baldridge, and joining me for this supernatural series, I'm joined by Jay Light, former roommate and very, very dear friend, Daron Dean. You know her from Pop Trigger in season 1 of Murder with Friends. And again, Amir Nikoui.
Don't be a garbage person.
I was just gonna say, I was like, and then the garbage man of Murder with Friends. So today's edition of Murder with Friends, we're talking about supernatural stories, cases. These are all tales that have some sort of supernatural, spooky component to them. Now we're gonna be looking at this with a skeptic's eye, but I think it's interesting to talk about different theories on a lot of these cases. What we're gonna be talking about today is one of the most hotly requested cases. I've kind of stayed away from it for a while because I think it's been done to death, especially on YouTube. We're talking about the mysterious death of Elisa Lam, and helping us just to get the story started is a narration put together by my brother Kempton. So Kempton, take it away.
Elisa Lam was a Canadian student from Vancouver, British Columbia, who died under mysterious circumstances at the age of 21. Taking a break from her studies in January 2013, Lam went on a tour of Southern California, posting pictures on social media along the way. Although she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, and was on several medications, Lam's parents had taken care to hide this, believing there was no reason she would attempt suicide. On January 28th, Lam checked into the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. She was initially sharing a room with others, however, she was moved to her own room after her roommates complained of strange behavior. Lam was last seen alive by the hotel staff on January 31st. A few days after she failed to check out on time, police filed a missing persons report on February 6th. With no leads appearing, on February 14th, the LAPD released footage taken of Lam in one of the hotel elevators on February 1st. In it, she enters and exits the elevator several times, presses multiple buttons, and makes various strange gestures to an unseen person outside the elevator. Explanations of her behavior by video analysts varied from suggestions that she was avoiding a pursuer, was under the influence of ecstasy, or was having a psychotic episode. On February 19th, residents began complaining of low water pressure and a strange taste coming from the faucets. When maintenance workers opened up one of the water tanks on the roof, they were horrified with what they found.
So that was my brother breaking down what we know about the disappearance and the mysterious death of Elisa Lam. He brought to light a number of different theories. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I know that this has been covered over and over and over again, but I'm wondering if you have any new theories or something that really stuck out to you with regards to her death.
Unfortunately, kind of going through this again. So the first time I read this story, I was so creeped out. And I think a big part of it was that video of her in the elevator.
Yes. Oh yeah.
That's just one of the creepiest things ever. I didn't even watch it again this time when I was going through this story, but I read a lot of great breakdowns of it, and it's pretty clear cut that she had a manic episode which led to this. And like a lot of the different theories, they try to break down, well, how did she get on the roof in the first place? How did she get the door open on the water tank? That's a really heavy door. But when you actually go through the facts, like you see that if you really wanted to do that, you could have done it. And the door on the water tank wasn't even that heavy. So it's just a really tragic situation of someone with mental illness. And it kind of highlights the misconceptions and the mystery that like society has on people with mental illness.
Well, and this went viral through social media. I remember hearing about this online because it was like creepy ghost story thing, and you know, playing this hotel video, and you'd see like GIFs of it and all this stuff in like a listicle from BuzzFeed. It's easy to sort of take your mind there, but when you really do look at the facts, I was listening to the Generation Y podcast. I would highly recommend it. It's pretty much the only true crime podcast I listen to, and they were just breaking down just sort of the maintenance ladder in order to get there, and all the different ways that she could have gotten onto the roof. And furthermore, if someone else took her to the roof, how difficult it would be to carry a body without someone noticing and without making some sort of a stir. Now that said, there is a person that was living at this Cecil Hotel at the time, because this is a hotel that you can sort of live in for months at a time, that did say that he heard some sort of a commotion around the time of her disappearance, but that could be attributed to her getting into the water tank and having an episode on the roof.
Yeah. I think part of what also exacerbates this story and adds to the creepy factor before you go in and investigate and see that it's really just another case of mental illness is the fact that there's a lot of other mysterious deaths that happen at this hotel, a lot of suicides in particular. So I think that there's this, people are going to assign a supernatural element, and in fact that like, oh, maybe there's like a malevolent presence that's going on and possessing people to commit suicides over and over and over again at this hotel. And
what they point to is in part of that theory is the fact that she presses all the buttons in the elevator, but then the door doesn't close. So we all understand how elevators work. The doors eventually have to close. Like, why weren't the doors closing? Was there someone holding the button? But where she was addressing in the hallway of the Cecil Hotel, if someone was holding the button and she was addressing them or gesturing to them and the weird gestures that she makes, the person would have actually been behind her. I mean, the elevator door not closing is weird. I don't know if it means that there was
If there's another thing I know about elevators not working is that if you press a bunch of buttons on an elevator, the poor thing can get very confused.
Yeah. Especially at the Cecil Hotel is an old hotel. So another thing that people point to is that you know, the alarm system on the roof, like why didn't the alarms go off? Well, the alarm wasn't on at the time. And then also, why was there only one working camera? That's just the Cecil Hotel. We're talking about a hotel in downtown Los Angeles that's really close to Skid Row. This is not a fancy hotel. In fact, it's even strange that she chose to stay at the Cecil Hotel. Just to give you an idea, on top of the suicides that Jay was pointing out before, Richard Ramirez stayed there, Jack Unterweger stayed here, 2 serial killers that we have covered on this show. It's incredibly strange. There's also rumors, although I definitely push back on this, that the Black Dahlia was last spotted at the Cecil Hotel. I think that was actually a different hotel. I think it was the Biltmore Hotel, and also in downtown Los Angeles. But every hotel wants to claim that. Like every hotel is like, we were the last one before this woman was murdered. Like, why do you want that fact?
Yeah.
Anyway, Daron, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah. So for me, I think what kind of stuck out was just the thought that it's hard for humans in general to, especially with a case like this, where it's like everything kind of had to happen right, but like, you know, the facts are there that, you know, obviously, you know, there was a way that she had to get up to the top. The door wasn't that heavy. You know, she had a history of mental illness, but it's harder for us to believe those facts because so many of them had to happen like in a row. It's way harder to believe that than to believe, you know, something dark and something weird was happening. And I think that's just in general as humans, when you don't actually know what happened and you don't actually know the full story, there's nobody to corroborate that, then your mind kind of goes to places that are a little more dark and like weird.
Yeah, we should talk about the facts of the autopsy as well. The cause of death was determined to be drowning in the autopsy. Another thing that we can find in her toxicology is that she did have a number of prescription medications in her system. A lot of times you'll see on the internet that she had no drugs in her system. I think what they're referring to when they say that, because it's sort of a blanket term, is that there were no illegal narcotics in her system, but she was on mood stabilizers at the time, which sort of goes along with what we know about her struggling with mental illness. She also had no abrasions or trauma on her body that was reported. But a thing that's important to note is that when people talk about, well, she must have had like a cut or a scrape when she was getting into the water tank, it's fully possible that she did. But as far as I could find, there were no autopsy photos that have been released to the public. But if that wasn't the cause of death, you know, if she had like a scrape scrape or a bruise or something, and her body was in the water tank for 2 weeks. I mean, they were just saying that the skin was just falling off of her.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure why that would need to be included if they can determine the cause of death.
Look, it's important that the drugs that they did find in her, because she was prescribed a number of drugs, but the only ones that they actually found in her were her mood stabilizers and antidepressants. They did not find any of her antipsychotic medications in there. And from what I read a little bit, she was on Wellbutrin, and that's been known to cause manic episodes in people with her condition.
And when we talk about mania as well, a lot of people will point to her Tumblr presence. She had a very robust Tumblr presence, and you'll see that she was talking about her struggle with mental illness and just struggling to get out of bed sometimes. And if you've ever experienced depression, you understand that weight of just not wanting to leave your bed. But then in recent posts, she had been more upbeat, and so people are saying, why would she have killed herself or experienced this episode? She was feeling more upbeat. Well, that's how mania works.
Yeah.
It's not all, you're not just consistently on the downswing. You do have these moments of an uptick of feeling euphoric and feeling really excited and good about life. So I think that's kind of important to add into that conversation, that even though her posts at the time may have indicated that she was coping better, it doesn't necessarily negate the fact that she could have also experienced this episode that we see from the people that were rooming with her. It seems like she was experiencing.
Yeah, so, I mean, we all pretty much agree that there's not really like any supernatural elements to this.
But let's go there, Amir.
Yeah, but let's go there, because there's like one part of this that creeps me out more than anything. And I was reading about this kind of phenomenon about synchronicity, and it's this concept that the psychologist Carl Jung brought up a long time ago, which is acausal coincidences that happen. And this is like a prime example of a story that has a lot of those things. So there's a couple of them. One is the Cecil Hotel, which we talked about, and the rich history behind it. And the other one is the movie Dark Water.
I can't believe you're bringing this up.
Grace,
We have to.
Yeah.
Come on.
We have to bring it up.
Okay.
Tell me about Dark Water.
So Dark Water is a movie from 2005. It's actually a remake of a Japanese film starring Jennifer Connelly.
Oh, is this the one with the washing machines?
I'm pretty sure. I actually, to be honest, I haven't seen it. I did watch some scenes in a trailer leading up to this. It's about Jennifer Connelly who's staying in a hotel. She is herself struggling with some mental instability in this point in her life. And as it goes, there's something weird about the water. The water starts coming out black. This is kind of a sidebar. During the time that Elisa was missing, before they found her body in the water tank, the residents of the Cecil Hotel did complain about a strange taste in the water. Some residents also said that the water was coming out discolored. So now back to Dark Water, there's that in the movie as well, and then it comes out that there was a girl, spoiler alert for all you Dark Water fans. There is a girl that was in the water tank and her parents forgot about her and her dad fucked off to Russia or something. I don't know, but like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, I don't really believe this, but Amir, there's a movie that does parallels.
Yes, that the girl goes up on the roof of this hotel and goes into a water tank and drowns and dies there, and then the water seeps into the hotel.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the second weird coincidence that like people keep looking at and like, but like wait, there is supernatural, so why would there be a movie where the plot is like literally the same?
Lead character's name is Cecilia.
Yeah, and Cecilia, Cecil Hotel, and there's another character called Dahlia, the Black Dahlia, which it doesn't really have a connection, but like people are trying to find the connections. The last one that I want to talk about, and there's more, but this one really like is crazy. During this investigation for Elisa Lam, there was apparently a TB outbreak, tuberculosis, in Skid Row right near the place. The test that they ended up using for the TB outbreak is called the Lam/Elisa test. Crazy. How crazy is that?
I mean, it's
like
that's what synchronicity is, though. It's all these coincidences surrounding this thing, and it's people will like write it off to being like, okay, this is like a mathematical probability. This happens in a world where there's so many different statistics.
But I think Daron's point that she brought up about the mind going to dark places is the most valid point here. Is that whenever something unexplainable happens, we want to try and explain it as much as we can, which means we're going to connect the dots and make weird things and assert that Jennifer Connelly has some sort of like psychic knowledge about this case.
They're gonna see dots where there may not really be dots there.
Yeah.
But I understand. I mean, the tape is incredibly creepy. I remember, reading on some of these listicles when it first came out years back that maybe that her body was moving in an unnatural way, and it's moving in a weird way, and the tape is really unsettling.
It's
but
called
it's
like psychomotor agitation or something.
Yeah,
and it happens when people are in a manic state.
But you can do. I've seen it. I've seen it take place in other ways. And you put anything in a hotel security camera, it's going to be creepy. You could film a proposal there, and it would be incredibly creepy and bizarre.
Yeah.
So I think that while there is a compelling supernatural element here, it seems as collectively as a panel we are in agreement that we do not believe that ghosts were to blame.
No, maybe for some of those other suicides, but not for this one.
Good, wow. And on that note, we're gonna leave it there for this one. I know that this has been a case you guys have wanted us to discuss, so I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. Do you think there was a supernatural element here or just something that can be easily explained? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and we will see you next time on Murder with Friends.